Hello, and welcome to Ministry to Muslims. I am your host tonight, Carmen, and I would like to welcome everyone to the show tonight. I have a lot of announcements, a lot of exciting news, and then we will start the night with Olin. So, first, I would like to say that this week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, is our Strong Tower Conference. I know people like to procrastinate and wait to the last minute to get their things, but usually that's not a good thing. But this week it is, because if you get your tickets now, you can get 70% off. So that's either in person or live, whichever you want to do. You just have to go to ministrytomuslims.com and look for our information in there, and you will need a code. And that code is capital OST 2024, and that will give you 70% off. You can't beat a better deal than that. And it's going to be a great conference this year. I'm going to read off everyone who's going to be there. So I'm going to be there. We have Dr. Jay Smith. We have Reverend Anthony Rogers, Al Fadi, Kamal Fahmy, Dr. Dan Brubaker, Dr. Edward Delcourt, Dr. Tony Costa, Pastor James Cadiz, Matt Slick from CARM, not me, but CARM Ministries, Francesco Maggio. We have a special guest, and I don't even know who that guest is, and I'm a little upset that I don't know the inside scoop, but we will find out this weekend. And Reverend Samuel Green, and I believe Olin is also going to be there. So we're excited about that. So make sure you register today. Go to ministrytomuslims.com to get all of your information. So tonight, I would like to introduce Olin. Olin Giles is a full-time missionary, ordained minister, speaker, and trainer at Radical Truth. He has served as youth pastor, senior pastor, associational youth director, and Ratio Christi, Director of Appalachian State University, engaging unbelievers with the gospel and equipping the church to defend the historical Christian faith is his passion and purpose in life, and he does a wonderful job at that. He desires to see every Christian equipped and ready to engage in the battles of ideas is at the heart of his ministry and calling. Olin's personal YouTube channel is called Why Christianity, and if you're not subscribed to that, you're missing out. So go to Why Christianity on YouTube and click subscribe. So I would like to introduce today Olin. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Carm?
Good. So I don't want to misspeak. You are going to be at the conference this weekend, right?
That's right. Yeah, I
Yep,
wouldn't miss it for the world. I'm
I
very
know.
excited. Yeah. George has done a great job of putting this conference together. I think this is going to be one of the best ones yet. We certainly have some of the we've got the best speakers in the world on this topic. So I'm pretty excited to be there with especially two of my professors, Al Fadi and Jay Smith.
Yes, that's exciting. I mean, we have
Yeah.
all the wonderful guys all in one spot. So if you're in Los Angeles, you don't want to miss this opportunity to just come in and meet the guys. There's going to be Q&A. We love the Q&A part. You get to ask your questions and they answer them, and it's exciting. Everybody learns. There's also breakout sessions and all of that. So you get to choose your class where you want to go, and it's just going to be a good time just to fellowship and meet everyone. And we do this every year, and every year it's a great turnout, and it's a lot of fun. It's exciting. Also, we have, okay, so your topic today is King Jesus and Daniel.
That's right.
Okay, so I will let you go ahead and begin, and if you need me,
Okay.
I will be backstage.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Carm.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, my topic, again, as Carm said tonight, is just going to be looking at the Son of Man, King Jesus, in Daniel 7, 13, and 14. Just these two verses, of course. We'll skip around and look at some others as well, and some New Testament passages. I want to be honest from the get-go. Much of the information that I'm going to be sharing in this presentation comes from a book that I've read it before, and I just recently started reading it again. And it's titled "The Son of Man: The Gospel in Daniel 7, Volume 1." He has a Volume 2 that looks at some of the some of the writings of Paul as well. Just an excellent work. Every now and then I run across a book like this that it's just very expository in its teaching, and of course I like that. I have nothing to say to you that I want to say what the Bible says. I want to exegete the scriptures, and so this is kind of what this book does. It goes really in depth at looking at Daniel 7 and how Jesus used this title, the Son of Man, and applied it to himself, of course, and how he often used it, um, quoting other passages or other parts of Daniel. So, just a really good resource. I can't recommend it enough. Of course, Walter Kaiser Jr. says I can hardly find the adequate words to commend this book, and as I just said, I agree. If you're an expository teacher, preacher, you will find this book extremely helpful. Well, um, I would put it right up there with Dr. Tony Costa's book on early creeds and hymns. I can't recommend that book enough as well. It's a great resource. But as I went through this, I couldn't help but think of another book that I've been reading, and this is titled Jesus, Man, Messenger, Messiah by Abu Zachariah. And of course, Abu Zachariah, he's a Muslim, and he would have us to believe that the deity of Christ is not a biblical doctrine, or at least it's not found in the Old Testament or the New Testament, really, I think is what he says. But on page 31, he says, the reason why Jewish people do not believe in a triune God is that he is never presented as such in the Old Testament. And of course, I want to ask, what Old Testament are you reading? Because it's absolutely filled with passages confirming the deity of Christ, both the Old and the New Testament. And, we recognize that Muslims have a very shallow understanding of the Old Testament. They love to pick out, one Bible verse and focus on that. They totally disregard the context and often misunderstand the passage and what it's saying entirely. But we're going to look at the book of Daniel here, just a small portion of it tonight, and just want to show you how Jesus takes this title, the Son of Man, applies it to himself, and he's quoting Daniel 7. This is something that we need to know. This is something that we need to uh, understand and be prepared to answer these Muslims who are making these claims like Abu Zachariah. He goes on to say that Jesus preached pure monotheism, and of course he's talking about um, a Unitarian type God. He's talking about um, God as a monad, or as one in being, one in person. So here we are. Islam says that Jesus is no more than a prophet, and Christians say that he is the God man. That's the difference between the two of us. And as we look at this passage tonight, we need to understand that this is one of the most fundamental disagreements between the two religions. I know that you realize that, but just felt like I needed to make that comment at the beginning. So, who has the real Jesus? This idea is being discussed in Matthew 16, which contains what I would say is one of the oddest statements in the New Testament. Here, Jesus asks the question, who do people say the Son of Man is? Eventually, in verse 15, he asks his disciples, but who do you say that I am? And Peter responds by saying, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. So I want you to notice here that we have three different titles for Jesus in this one chapter already. But notice that Jesus says to Peter, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. The disciples, of course, here are struggling to understand the person and work of Christ. Just a few verses later, Jesus explains the gospel to them in verse 21. He explains his coming death, burial, and resurrection. And you know how Peter responds. This is a well-known passage. I'm sure that you're familiar with it. Peter says, "God forbid it, Lord. This shall never happen to you." And I know you're fully aware of how Jesus responds too. He says, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's." So you can see here that he's struggling to understand. I mean, he's heard what Jesus has said. He's heard him predict his death, burial, and resurrection, but he says, "God forbid." And of course, Jesus corrects him very strongly here. And if we back up to verse 20, Jesus already knew that the disciples were not quite ready to share the gospel with others. I think this is why he warned them that they should tell no one that he was the Christ. Very strong language here again. He warned them. Some people think that Jesus is trying to prolong his life here until the timing is right. He's trying to hide his identity. Um, I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's very outspoken and very clear about who he is. He's the Son of Man. I think the reason he says this to his disciples is that it has more to do with their understanding of the gospel, and of course, waiting on the Holy Spirit. If we look at Mark chapter 9, 31 through 32, we find much of the same thing. Jesus predicts his death, burial, and resurrection. He says, "The Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he has been killed, he will rise 3 days later." Verse 32. Here, the disciples, we're told, did not understand his statement, and they were afraid to ask him. Again, same thing in Luke 18, 31 through 34. Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man, just like these other two passages. He says that he's going to die, be buried, and on the third day arise from the dead. And again, the disciples were told, understood none of these things. So I don't think it has anything to do with him trying to prolong his life, or he's waiting for the timing, to go to the cross. I think it has more to do with their understanding of the gospel. He didn't want to create this atmosphere of confusion. And again, they needed the Holy Spirit before they started sharing the gospel. So it kind of sounds odd to us for Jesus to say, "Go and tell no one," but that's kind of the way I see it there. And I would welcome any correction or input. If somebody else has a better idea, please share it with me, or maybe make a comment during the Q&A. But the point is, Jesus explicitly refers to himself here as the Son of Man in all three passages. This was his favorite title for himself. This was the most common title for Jesus in the New Testament. 49 times the Gospels refer to Jesus as the Christ or the Messiah, and only 11 of these times does Jesus refer to himself in this way. 25 times in the Gospels, he's called the Son of God, but only 5 of those times does Jesus describe himself in this way. 14 times the Gospels refer to him as the Son of David, but here only once does Jesus use this title for himself. But if we look at the Son of Man, we find that this phrase is used 78 times in the Gospels, and all 78 times it's used by Jesus. No one else dared use this title for him, but yet he refers to himself in this way. This was his favorite title. This was his favorite way of referring to himself. And over the years, some people have come to believe that the Son of Man is a reference to his humanity, but that's not true. This title speaks of his deity, his divine nature, his divine authority, and I think he expects his audience to make this connection to Daniel 7, and I think that they do. if we look at Daniel 7:13, I can read this and you're going to think of several New Testament passages. Daniel 7:13 says, I saw in the night visions, and this is Daniel speaking. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, there came one like the Son of Man, and he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. Verse 14, and to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom that all the nations and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not pass away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. Of course, there's a lot to unpack here, but let me begin by saying that on the surface, the title, the Son of Man, may not sound like a divine title, but it is. And the Old Testament is filled with references to the Son of Man. Of course, let me back up. Let me try to say it a little different here, because it is kind of a tricky thing. The Old Testament is filled with passages that use this title, the Son of Man, to speak of a normal human being. It really could be translated as the son of Adam in a lot of these passages, and of course here it does speak of humanity, and again a normal human being. Numbers 23:18, Psalms 8:4 are just a few examples, but it's clearly understood as a divine title in the New Testament. You see this over and over. Um, the disciples and the others, they may not have fully understand the gospel, but no one ever asked Jesus to explain what he means by the Son of Man. They seem to understand that it's a reference to Daniel 7, which again is a reference to a divine figure. In fact, 3 of the 4 times that Jesus is accused of blasphemy is directly connected to this title. Matthew 26, the high priest asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of God? And Jesus responds in verse 64 saying, you have said it yourself. Nevertheless, I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest doesn't ask a clarifying question here. He immediately tore his robes and accused him of blasphemy. We could look at Acts 7:56 through 57. Here we find the first Christian martyr. Here Stephen is killed for claiming Jesus is the Son of Man. So again, my point is that everyone seems to understand that this is a divine title, specifically referring to Daniel 7. And so what I want to do in the time that I have remaining is show you why they understood the Son of Man as a claim to deity. When Jesus takes this title for himself, he's claiming to be the God man, basically. He's claiming to be this divine figure from Daniel 7. The book of Daniel often leads us to think about end times, but we shouldn't miss its high Christology. And it's really interesting to me, as I studied this, that Daniel 2:4 through Daniel 7:28 is recorded in Aramaic instead of Hebrew. They are, of course, similar languages, but this means that Daniel 7:13 contains the only reference to the Son of Man in Aramaic. So this is a unique passage here in Daniel 7:13. This is the only place in the Bible that we have the title, the phrase, whatever you want to call it, the words the Son of Man in English. This is the only place that we find them in Aramaic. So it's a very unique passage. And if we compare the two languages in Hebrew, again, I've already told you that it meant the son of Adam, Ben Adam, or the son of Adam. This is what we find again throughout the Old Testament. We find it in Numbers 23, Psalms 8 as well as others. But in the Aramaic, here in Daniel 7:13, it's translated in Aramaic, which is Bar Inasha, which seems to be understood differently in the New Testament. Perhaps we know that Jesus spoke Aramaic. Uh, so this is, I really believe this is the title that he's using. He's saying Bar Inasha. He's not just saying that he's a a mere human being. And we can see this difference in the book of Daniel. In 7:13, it refers to a divine figure in heaven. I've said that several times already, but in 8:17, we find the son of Adam, Ben Adam. It refers to Daniel. So there's some differences here that make this a very unique passage. And there are, I think, at least three good reasons to believe that Jesus is referring to Daniel 7:13 in the New Testament. Um, First of all, 60 of his 78 references to the Son of Man also contain other elements of Daniel 7, such as coming on the clouds of heaven. And so he doesn't just use this title, and it's not just, we're not just speculating that he's saying Bar Inasha, but he also has these other elements of Daniel 7, like he's coming on the clouds of heaven. Secondly, the New Testament authors could have rightly translated the Son of Man by saying Ben Adam, as or I'm sorry, they could have translated this as anthropos, but they do not. And then finally, the use of the definite article the. Jesus is not just a Son of Man, but he is the Son of Man. So specifically, the one from Daniel 7:13, he uses the phrase as a title for himself. So let's take a closer look at this high Christology in Daniel 7 that Jesus that really sets Jesus apart as the unique God man. Number one, the Son of Man comes on the clouds of heaven. Just trying to check and make sure I've got my slides right here. I had to StreamYard, whenever you download a PowerPoint to it, it really messes with what you've put together. And I had to save every PowerPoint slide as a JPEG and then put them back into the PowerPoint so that StreamYard didn't save them. So forgive me if I'm just kind of going back and forth here, making sure I'm on the right slide. But number one, the Son of Man, as I've said, comes on the clouds of heaven. But this was something that only Yahweh did. This is, Jesus says that he's coming on the clouds of heaven. He's referencing Daniel 7 here. But throughout the Old Testament, this was something that only Yahweh did. And there are at least 4 other Old Testament references to Yahweh riding the clouds. If we look at Deuteronomy 33:26, it says, "There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your help and through the skies in his majesty." Psalms 68:32-33, we read, "O kingdoms of the earth, sing praises to God, sing praises to the Lord, Selah, to him who rides in the heavens, the ancient heavens." Psalm 10:3-4, "He makes the clouds his chariot. He walks upon the wings of the wind. He makes the wind his messengers, flaming fire his ministers." And then lastly, Isaiah 19:1, here we're told that Yahweh is riding on a swift cloud and comes to Egypt, and the idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of the Egyptians will melt with them. So here we have 4 Old Testament passages that led the ancient Israelites to believe that anyone who came riding the clouds was a divine figure. The Jews understood this. This was very well understood by them. Bible scholar Peter Gentry says this as well. He agrees, and he says that all we need to demonstrate that the Son of Man is a divine figure, he writes, The coming on clouds suggests an appearance or a theophany of Yahweh himself. If Daniel 7:13 does not refer to an appearance of deity, it is the only exception in about 70 instances in the Old Testament. And this comes from his book, The Son of Man, in Daniel 7, individual or corporate. Perhaps more unusual is how the clouds often represent God. They're personal too. There were of course a lot of things that come to my mind as I was trying to prepare this and put it together. But here's just a few verses that I thought of. Exodus 19:16, a thick cloud descends on Mount Sinai and speaks to Moses. Exodus 33:9-10 tells us a pillar of cloud would stand. And notice the language here. A pillar of cloud would stand at the entrance of the tent and speak to Moses. Exodus 33:10-11. The cloud is worshipped as Yahweh, and we're told speaks. Again, notice the language, face to face with Moses. So this is not just any ordinary cloud. If we look, also we see that this one, like the Son of Man, came up to the Ancient of Days. Yet the Bible tells us repeatedly that no man could do this. And here again are just a few verses that I came up with. And Daniel 7:13 contains, I got here, it contains a simile. The one who approaches the Ancient of Days is like a son of man. I found that very interesting as well. But Exodus 33:20 says that no man can see God and live. In Deuteronomy 4:12, Moses only heard the voice of the Lord. In Exodus 34:29-30, Aaron and the sons of Israel were afraid to approach Moses because his face and skin were illuminated so brightly because of his encounter with God on Mount Sinai. And a New Testament passage that I know that all of you are familiar with is John 1:18, which tells us that no man has seen God at any time. So God, of course, is a spirit. He's a spaceless, timeless, immaterial spirit. So it makes sense that nobody has ever seen God at any time. But of course, John goes on to say that the only begotten God who is in the bosom of the Father, he has explained him or exegeted him. What a wonderful passage. I love that. I know Anthony Rogers and others have spoke on this often, but just a neat passage there in John, especially with the Old Testament passages in mind. All right, we also know that only God could be the ultimate judge, yet the Son of Man will judge the nations here in Daniel 7. If we back up just a little bit from verses 13 and 14, verses 9-10, they describe a courtroom where the books were opened. And notice too, if you have your Bibles, that there are thrones, a plurality of thrones, indicating I think that God is multi-personal. I mean, there's not just a throne for the Ancient of Days, but there are thrones, and we know that that Jesus himself is seated at the right hand of the Father right now. So the Son of Man takes on the roles of God in this courtroom scene. You know, it's not just a courtroom scene, but here we have this divine figure called the Son of Man who takes on the roles of God in this court. So if we think about this and we look at some other passages like Joel 3:2, here we're told that Yahweh will gather the nations and judge them. Again, Daniel 7:13 describes the Son of Man descending to the earth on the clouds of heaven to execute judgment. You can't deny that there are two distinct divine persons here in this passage. And if we go on, Also notice that he is given everlasting dominion. When the Son of Man approaches the Ancient of Days, he's given three things: dominion, glory, and a kingdom. And if we look back through the book of Daniel, we see that the word dominion is used frequently to describe the power and authority of God. It's used to describe the power and authority of Yahweh. I mean, it's also used, of course, to speak of the dominion of some men as well. Daniel 4:22 is an example that I have here. It speaks of the rule and authority of Nebuchadnezzar. Speaks of the rule and authority of King Darius in 622. But these are all temporary dominions. These are all limited dominions. Only God has an everlasting dominion, and yet here we find that the Son of Man is given an everlasting dominion in 7:14. But if we look at Daniel 7:27, it says that the dominion and kingdoms will be given to the saints of the Most High, and they will serve and obey him. And if we back up a little bit to 7:14, we see that they're serving the Son of Man here. Oh, I'm sorry. I got a little confused there. So in 7:27, it speaks of the Most High. So it says that dominion and kingdoms will be given to the saints of the Most High. So it's speaking of the Most High. And then if we look at 7:14, it basically says the same thing about the Son of Man. They both will be served, or really the better understanding of this word is worshiped. This is how the word is used elsewhere in Daniel. Daniel 3:12, we're told that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not serve or worship the golden image that was set up. When Nebuchadnezzar threatens to throw them in the fiery furnace, they respond by saying, "Our God, whom we serve," same word here, "is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire," in 3:17. So again, my point is, you can see how the word as the word that's translated as serve here is used synonymously with worship. And again, if we look at some other Old Testament passages like Zechariah 14:9, he says that Yahweh will be king over all the earth. He will be served. Same thing with the title, the Most High. The nations will serve and obey both the Son of Man and the Most High. Again, Daniel frequently refers to God as the Most High, but then he does something very interesting here in chapter 7, verse 25. He refers to the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man with two different terms that both mean Most High. So he refers to the Most High and the highest one. So the final king will speak out against the Most High. This is in verse 25. The final king will speak out against the Most High and wear down the saints of the highest one. So you see what he's done here? The Most High and the highest one. These two words are the same. There's no difference between the Most High and the highest one. These are just two different ways of saying the same thing. But by using these two terms, Daniel makes a distinction between the two divine persons, the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man. I love that. I as I studied this and looked at this passage, what a great place to take our Muslim friends to show them the Father and the Son in the Old Testament. Daniel 7:25. They're both right there. And so I was just looking at the time here. It seems like 30 minutes is all I can go here, but almost done. I'll close with this. If we go back to Matthew 26, I got Matthew 16 there. That should be Matthew 26. There is no Matthew 16:64. Sorry about that typo. But if we go to Matthew 26, where Jesus is standing before Caiaphas, yeah, he's in a kangaroo court, so to speak, and he tells the high priest here, he says, "You have said it yourself." Um, this is, verse 64. "You have said it yourself. Nevertheless, I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." In other words, I think Jesus is saying here, I am the highest one. I have the power and authority to judge you. And one day you're going to see me coming on the clouds of heaven to execute judgment on you. You think you're judging me right now, but there's going to come a day when I'm going to be judging you. What a powerful passage. We know how the high priest responded. Um, he tore his clothes, accused Jesus of blasphemy, and again, Jesus was using this title, the Son of Man, to explicitly refer to himself as a divine figure from Daniel, and his audience understood that very well. Um, so with that, I'm going to close right there and see if we've got any questions. I have. I tell you, I hope that made sense. I have really just the last several days, I have had so much on me and trying to get ready for California. Just so excited to be able to go, be there, and be a part of this conference. And you never know what George is going to spring on you. So I've tried to put together a few a few talks as well, and just be as prepared as I possibly can. But it dawned on me at the last minute that I've got the second Sunday's going to come before I leave. For some reason, I was thinking that we were going to be in California during this second Sunday. So I put this together very quickly. It's a great book, great resource, and maybe we have some questions.
Well, you're absolutely right about Pastor George. He loves surprises. He loves surprising everyone. No one is excluded in those surprises. That's for sure.
I love
I just want to
it.
say, for being thrown together, that was really good. It's so useful and resourceful. I would recommend anyone in the chat to go back and just write those slides down. That's a lot of information. You did a lot of work and just made it really easy for us. But I love what you did there. It's simple
Thank
and
you.
it's to the point. It's really good
I'll,
stuff.
I'll be glad to send the PowerPoint to anybody who wants it. Just message me on or
Right.
Facebook or contact
What's
George or
your email?
however. JCMIN at live.com. So JC as in Jesus Christ.
Here, I'll type it in the chat. Hold on.
Okay.
JC
JCMIN at live or live.com.
JCMIN at live.com.
That's it. Yep.
All right. Look in the chat and make sure I did that right.
You got it.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions in the chat? I mean, I know we did have a question. It wasn't kind of pertaining to tonight's topic, but I guess we could start with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Doreen, who says she'll be there this weekend, so looking forward to meeting her. Do Roman Catholics know their Pope was speaking for Satan?
Well, obviously they don't, or they wouldn't be a Roman Catholic. I don't think so. That would be my
There's your
response.
answer. There's your answer.
Yeah. um, we have a lot of great resources for that topic on the YouTube channel Ministry to Muslims, Dr. Dalcor, Anthony Rogers.
Yeah,
That's something that I haven't really devoted a lot of time to. I probably should. I've got some family members that are Roman Catholic, but
I
you
think
won't
we
go
all.
wrong by listening to Dr. Dalcor or Rogers or Matt Slick or any of the others.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me see. I don't think we have any questions. I think that was the only one. We had a lot of people loving your PowerPoint. Yeah, we don't really have any questions.
Okay, I'm not sure how to take that. I never have questions, so
Well, because
be
usually
a good thing.
you're straight and to the point, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If anybody, for all of you just joining, we have our Strong Tower conference coming up this weekend in California. If you're in the California area, you can come and meet all of us. There's going to be a lot of speakers, a lot of great speakers. Olin will be there. I will be there. Um,
Yes.
our regulars here, Reverend Anthony Rogers, Dr. Edward Delcor. We have Matt Slick coming. We have Al Fadi. We have Dr. James J. Smith. I'm forgetting. Hold on. I'm going to make sure I read them all.
Dr. Daniel Brubaker.
Yes, Dr. Tony Costa, which I think he'll be online, the online version.
I'm
Um,
not sure. I was thinking he was going to be there in person, but you may
okay,
be right.
I might have just made that up. Don't take my word for that. Reverend Samuel Green, he's online only. That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we have a lot of wonderful speakers. I would definitely take this opportunity to come, and if you're in the California, I think it's the city is like close to Anaheim. I think it's Chino Hills, somewhere like that.
Yeah, very close by there.
If you go on to, if you can't make it in person, you can go and you can watch it online. And this week, if you go to ministrytomuslims.com and go to register and type in for the code OST 2024, you will get 70% off of the ticket. So that's a steal. That's like nothing. Oh,
Absolutely.
Doreen said Yorba Linda. I'm sorry. So that's what
Yorba,
it,
yeah, Yorba Linda.
yeah. Thank you. So you can get 70% off and then you can watch the whole conference with us. Because I know there's a lot of people that live all over the United States that can't make it,
Right.
but would love to watch and be a part of that. So it's a great opportunity to everybody to watch and be a part of that. What else? So it's this weekend, September 13th through the 15th, and you don't want to miss it. Just go to ministrytomuslims.com and get all of your information. And
Carm,
yeah.
could I insert? You just explained that better than I ever could, but I just want to. I mean, I just want to emphasize too that go to your pastor. Go to your church leaders. I just believe there is such a sense of urgency right now in sharing the gospel with people who are. I mean, we have the 1040 window coming to us right now. I know I say this often, but we had a conversation in Dearborn with a guy from Senegal. He's part of the Wolof people group. I mean, folks, this place is 99.49% Islamic. This is the 1040 window, the most difficult people in the world to reach. They're now coming to us, and we as a church should be better prepared to interact with these people and have meaningful conversations with them to of course share the gospel with them. So George has done a great job of putting this conference together. We've never had this many speakers that I know of,
Right.
and just an incredible lineup of these are the best in the world, I think. And you should take advantage of this. If you can't be there in person, as Carm said, talk to your pastor, your church leader, somebody, and see if you can live stream it to the church. This is going to be great training and very helpful. So I'm going to stop there. Sorry if
No,
yeah,
that's true. Like we should get our churches involved. We should get our pastors involved. I know a lot of churches are kind of hesitant to deal with Islam for whatever reason. They don't like the controversy. They
yeah,
just don't understand it. I believe that if they were to really just like listen to one of these conferences or be a part of it, such as live streaming it, they will get to understand that we're not bashing anybody. It's not a hateful group. They will see the hearts that each and every one of these speakers
yep,
have, that we have for Muslims, to really want to evangelize to them and teach them the truth. And it's been very beneficial in the past. A lot of Muslims email us, and we have so many wonderful stories of people, of Muslims, who have left Islam. Not all of them, will run to Christianity, but it's a process, and it's definitely, um, but it's a step towards, getting Muslims to see um, what we have to say, what the Bible has to say, and what, it's no better place than this conference is a one-stop shop. It
Yeah.
is all of the most intelligent people who deal with this all the time. This is what they love. This is their knowledge is in. We've got teachers, we've got, scholars, we've got all in one spot. And I'm so grateful to be a part of such an amazing organization and such an amazing event. It's going to be great. And it always is. I've gone last year, I wasn't able to go, but I've gone years in the past, 10, 8, 9, 10 years now. So I think that everybody should take this opportunity and just be a part of it somehow. Yeah,
Amen.
and let's see, RS has a good point. How shall they hear unless someone tells them? You're absolutely right. I hear a lot of Muslims say, or even not only Muslims, other people of, different religions say that they've never had a Christian come talk to them, or they've never had a Christian approach them and evangelize to them. And I understand. I mean, a lot of Christians are afraid to do that. They're afraid to make that step. They don't know what to say, how to start it. I
Right.
think you'd be great at explaining it. You're at boots on the ground all the time. How do you initially engage in someone? Like, what are the first couple words that you say?
Well, I mean, it's not, first of all, it's not very difficult. And I think a lot of Christians are paralyzed by fear, but there's really no reason to be afraid. You're not going to have trouble talking to a Muslim about God or Jesus. I mean, it's just as simple as asking them, what do you think about Jesus? And the conversation is going to be on from there.
Right.
It's just that simple. I think Muslims love to talk. I mean, it's just been my experience that they love to talk about these two things, and there's nothing to be afraid of. Of course, there's always the exception, but in the years that I've been doing this, I've never had any serious threat to my life. Of course, I'm no one, but walking around the streets of Dearborn, even just walking up to people's homes, which is predominantly Muslim. I mean, the Islamic flags are on every house. These people love to talk about these two topics, and this is all you had to do was say, we're Christian. We realize that we disagree with you about who Jesus is. What do you think? I mean, why do you believe Jesus was no more than a prophet? I think just simple questions like that are very engaging, and conversation is on from there.
Yeah, Daughter of the Most High makes a great point. She thinks Christians are afraid to offend people. Yeah, most people are
Yeah.
afraid, especially in this world that we're living in. People are so easily offended, and you're just caught off guard when you really truly mean well with your intentions of speaking with someone, and then you find that they're offended. But we have to be bold, like the Bible, tells us to be bold in our faith and give them the reason. And
That's.
so, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Carm. I
No,
thought
no,
you were done. I'm sorry.
I am. I'm done.
Sorry. I was just going to say too, what her comment made me think. That's one of the reasons why I like to ask questions. Usually questions are less offensive. I mean, it's not
Mhm.
very offensive to just say, "You mind if I ask you a question? What do you think about Jesus? I mean, what do you believe about Jesus?"
Yeah.
So they can, if you say, "You mind if I ask you a question?" They can say no and walk away. But most of them are going to, very respectfully respond. And the simple question, "What do you think about Jesus?" It's just not very offensive. It encourages them to think. Uh, so just a great way to start the conversation.
And it's good to remember too that the pressure is not on us to save them.
Yeah,
We drop the seeds, we have these conversations, and then, God takes it from there. And it may not, most of the time it's not just from our conversation that we have with them. It happens later on. It just because we also don't know what they've been thinking prior to the conversation that we had, what they've been watching, what
right.
they've been reading, what they've been questioning. And so us speaking to them may be that confirmation that they had, that they needed to start putting their, just, what they've been questioning their faith, what we've been it may have validated something. You just never
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
And so we just have to remember to not have that pressure on our shoulders, that God will take care of everything. He's sovereign. He will do everything how it's supposed to be. And we have to remember that, which takes the pressure off. And it's kind of like, I'll do my part, and then, God and everybody else can do the rest.
Amen.
Mhm.
I just a lot of verses come to mind there. I think, no man comes to the Father unless, or no man comes to the Son unless the Father draws them.
Yes.
You think about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit right now is convicting people of their sin, of righteousness, of judgment. As you said, our job is just to share the gospel and to have these meaningful conversations. We don't save anybody, but it's a pretty sobering thought to think that God has chosen to work in and through us to impact eternity. So, while it doesn't depend on us, God does use us. And so the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. And
Amen.
we just share it. We've
That's
got a powerful message.
So I'll answer this question. So I am not in Dearborn anymore. If you don't know, I grew up in Dearborn my whole life. I've moved away about 13 years ago or so, but my family is still there, and so I do visit often, and I go back. It's my home, and so when Ministry to Muslims, they go and evangelize in Dearborn, it just touches my heart. It really is. It's very special to me. I love my city. I love the people, and I just want them to come to Christ, and um, just think outside of the box, because they're very sheltered, and they're just really set on just believing that that's what it is, and they don't want to hear anything else. But it really is good to hear that they were so welcoming to you. And I mean, I know my friends that I spoke to during high school, none of us ever had bad conversations. We never walked away angry. It was all good conversation. So you're
Yeah.
right when you say that people, they're willing to talk, they're willing to have these conversations, because just as we are wanting to share the truth with them, they also believe that they hold the truth. So they want to share with us. So it's just a good conversation. So I'm grateful for that, because sometimes it's not so good speaking to people. They get agitated, and you just find yourself in a really awkward situation.
I often say I would rather talk to a Muslim than a Baptist. By the way, I am a Baptist, so don't be offended. But I just, as you said, I have a heart for Dearborn as well. I look forward to going up there every year we go. And I didn't grow up there like you, but it holds a very special place in my heart as well, just because there are Muslims there,
Yeah.
and God's called me to reach them. So,
And I'm glad he's chosen you. You do a very good job.
well, thank you, Carm.
Before we go, does anybody want to last minute questions in the chat, or anything about the conference you want to know? Anything at all? Going once? I'll give you guys a second to answer that. But thank you, everyone in the chat. I see you, Brandon, daughter of Most High, Trinity, Anu, everybody, Doreen, Truth Defenders, Nate, RS. You guys always are here every weekend, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming and, sticking with us. Let's
Did
see.
we answer her question there, Carm?
When will it be held at?
I,
So no, we didn't answer that. I didn't see that.
I just saw it. Sorry, I just
No,
happened to
that's
see
good.
it.
So it will be streaming on the Ministry to Muslims website. Let me put that up there. So you can go here. Let me find it. Okay, you can go here, and then it'll show maybe a registration or something like that. And then you go and you click on that, and it'll say our Strong Tower Conference 2024. And remember, the code word is OST. Hold on. What was it? OST. I have it written down somewhere.
OST 2024.
Yeah, there. That's the code. And that's what you need to get 70% off, whether you're in person or online. So 70% off is a really good deal. I love seeing 70% off of anything. It makes me happy.
I don't know who RS is, but he says be there or be square, y'all.
That's it. That's it. Be there, be square. That's right. Well, that's all right. There's no more questions. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And I don't know if we'll be streaming next Sunday. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Probably. So we'll make sure you tune in next Sunday, or make sure you watch out. We might be streaming.
George knows and you know not.
Story of my life. Well, thank you so much, Olin, for today. It was very informative. We always love hearing from you and what you got to say. To the chat, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And remember, go to ministrytomuslims.com for all of our information for upcoming, and again, for our 70% off. And we will see you next week, hopefully. If not, then the following week. But yeah. All right. God bless you all, and we'll see you guys later. Good night.